Hello and welcome to episode 2 of Diary of a College Coach. My name is John Jansen. I'm the head men's basketball coach at La Sierra University, located here in Riverside, California. And here we are with our second diary, and I am already leaving basketball on this little video here and going into the world of baseball. And I apologize in advance. I'm going to check my notes a lot because this is not my area of expertise, and so I have a lot of notes here on what I want to talk about. But for those of you who have listened to the podcast and have been to the website, you know that I'm very analytics driven, and I'm really interested in it, and I'm not an expert in it, but I think that as I've gone through this, I've learned more about it, and I continue to learn more about analytics and how it can help us in the coaching world, in the basketball world. So I want to talk today about the World Series, Game 6, Dodgers versus Rays, and how analytics played a role in the outcome of that game. So I think we all know by now what happened. Blake Snell was having a fantastic game. He had, I believe, a 2-hitter going, and the Rays manager, Kevin Cash, pulled him out of the game with 1 out, maybe 2 outs in the 6th inning. So he had pitched 5 2/3 innings, I believe. Could be 5 1/3. Anyway, obviously the relief pitcher came in, gave up a couple runs, and basically that was that. And everyone is condemning Kevin Cash for pulling Blake Snell out of the game when he had this amazing game going. And I really think that the manager was put in a really tough spot, obviously. And it's a situation, in my opinion, where if the Rays lose, he is the GOAT no matter what. And we'll get into all of that in a second. So let's just start with the situation for those who may not follow baseball. So the Dodgers were up 3-2 in the World Series against the Rays, and Blake Snell was on the mound with the Rays leading 1-0. And Blake Snell had been pitching a fantastic game. This is where I'm going to look at my notes here. He threw 5 1/3 inning. He had 9 Ks. He had 73 pitches, and the top 3 batters for the Dodgers were 0 for 6 with 6 Ks. And at that point in the game, the top of the order was coming up for the 3rd time. So you say to yourself, this guy's pitching fantastic. These guys are 0 for 6 against him. He struck out 6 of those guys, and now the coach comes and takes him out. And on the surface, it makes no sense. Now, someone had just gotten a base hit, so there was a guy on first. And we'll start off by saying that managers in baseball do this a lot. When a pitcher is pitching a great game, they don't want that pitcher to take the loss. So what they'll do is, let's say they're up by 1. When one guy gets on, which is the tying run, they'll pull the pitcher out. So now if the next guy hits a home run, the starting pitcher who pitched so great doesn't lose the game. If they're up by 2, you can allow 2 guys to get on, because if the next guy hits a home run, those first two guys that were on are charged to the pitcher who got pulled out, and then the third, which would be the run that gets the loss, is charged to the relief pitcher. So this is really common in baseball, that managers will pull their starter out when there is enough runners on base to tie the game. And that's what happened there. So that's one factor. The next factor is what had happened a few days prior when Snell had pitched last time. So you say to yourself, why pull him out? He's pitched amazing. He's given up no runs. He's given up 2 hits, and he's dominating the Dodgers. So now you look back at Game 2 when Blake Snell started. Again, I'm going to my notes, and I apologize for looking down. Snell was actually pitching better in Game 2. He had a no-hitter going into the 5th inning. And then he came to seeing these batters for the 3rd time. And what happens? He gives up a walk and a home run and gives up 2 runs. So that was after a no-hitter. So now you're looking in this scenario where he'd already given up 2 hits, And now he's reaching the order for the third time, which is exactly the situation he was in last time and where he wasn't able to get the job done. Now, that was with a no-hitter. So as good as he was pitching in Game 6, he was probably pitching even better in Game 2 because he had a no-hitter versus a two-hitter. So you say, we just saw this. And so the manager's like, I just saw this happen a few days ago where he's pitching out of his mind and then it falls apart. And in a game like that, with only one run scored to that point, you can't afford it. So he gives up the single, and now the start of the third time through, and this is where Kevin Cash made his decision. There's even more evidence why he should have been taken out at that point. Throughout the season, in the 6th inning and beyond, his ERA was 13.5 this season. His third time through the order, opponents' batting averages was 304, on-base percentage 609, and slugging 913. So all of these things were happening at that moment. Third time through the order, in the 6th inning, and all of his numbers say that he goes really bad. And it just happened in Game 2. So now you have two things that go for it. And then you can say, well, I was watching the game. And this is what a lot of people said. They said, I was watching the game, and I saw he was killing it, and you gotta just let him go. And you know what? That's good reasoning. But it actually isn't true. So you can look this up on the internet, and this is the numbers. So up until 4 batters prior to when he got pulled out, his fastball averaged 97 to 98 miles an hour. The last 4 batters before he got pulled out, his fastball averaged 94 miles an hour. So his fastball dropped 4 miles an hour in the last 4 batters. That's a sign that he's tiring. 2 batters before he was pulled, he hung a curveball to Pollock, who barely missed it, but it was a really bad pitch and he got really lucky. The batter before he got pulled out, which was the base hit to Barnes, he hung a slider, and that ball was hit for a base hit. So his fastball was getting slower. He was hanging his breaking pitches, and plus all the other information that we've just gone over. So if you're Kevin Cash and you see all of this in the dugout, I think it's clear that you have to take him out. Now, is it an easy decision? Of course not. Is it a feel decision? Maybe. I think part of it, I mean, look, clearly if it was feel, you would have left him in because he was pitching great. But when you have all of this data behind you, you have to go, or he chose to go with the numbers. So this is what I was talking about at the beginning, where if Tampa Bay loses, he's screwed either way, right? So if he leaves him in and the next guy hits a home run, the exact same thing that happened in Game 2, well, then he gets killed in the media because everybody said, you just saw this play out. You just saw him have a better game than this, and that's what happened. And then you leave him in, and the exact same things happen. You have to learn from Game 2. Now he takes him out. The reliever comes in, gives up the runs, and now everyone says, well, you have to leave him in. So because they lost, he got screwed either way. I guess maybe if they had lost like way later, but the reliever had come in and gotten out of the inning, maybe he wouldn't have been scrutinized so badly. But even so, let's say they lost it in the next inning, people would have still said, well, Schnell could have continued to pitch. I mean, look at him. He was pitching great. He only had 73 pitches. He could have easily gone another inning, and that wouldn't have happened. So, you know, whatever you do in a loss, and you see this in sports all the time, you know, if you lose, they will find a way to blame you for what you did. And I can actually relate this to basketball. The year LeBron lost to Dallas, Dallas decided that they were going to double team him in the fourth quarter of every game, every time he touched the ball. And LeBron, being unselfish, passed the ball, and his teammates didn't make shots. And they lost. Well, what if LeBron had just said, I'm going to shoot no matter what because I'm the star, and he had had all these double teams, and he had missed? Then every single analyst and every single person in the media would have said, look at all these guys wide open. You got to pass the ball. You know, you're a good scorer but a great passer, and you have NBA players standing wide open on the other side of the court because they wouldn't have missed those shots because he wouldn't have passed to them. So then that's the angle the media would have taken. Well, LeBron's being selfish, or LeBron should have passed to open guys instead of taking shots with double teams. But because he did the opposite and did pass, they're saying, well, you shouldn't have passed. So as long as you lose, they'll find a way to blame you and find, you know, what you didn't do to use that as ammunition. So I think it's a really hard decision, and I'm sure it's killing him right now. But I think that he made the right decision in the moment, even though it doesn't look like it, because he went with the data and he went with the past and he went with all of this information that we've kind of gone over here. And it's really tough. It's really tough because you know, if you think about it in basketball, if your star three-point shooter is 0 for 10 from 3 and you're down 3 at the end of the game, would you give him the ball? And I know that's not exactly the same because this is off the top of my head, but it's a tough decision because if he shoots and he misses, you say, well, he's 0 for 10. Why are you doing it? But if you give it to somebody else, everyone would say, well, you got to go with your guy. Even though he's missing, you got to go with your guy. So if you end up on the wrong side of it, you're blamed no matter what. And it's just the way the world works, and it's unfortunate. But I just thought it was really interesting, and I hope that it doesn't turn people off to analytics because it was an analytical-based decision, and it just didn't happen to work out this time. So that's it. I just thought that was really interesting, and I know it's a little off topic, but that's all for today. So we'll see you next time.